Living by yourself can turn the simple act of making dinner into a task that feels disproportionately heavy, but it doesn't have to be that way. We are diving into a collection of slow cooker creations that require zero hovering, zero constant stirring, and absolutely zero performance pressure. These are the set it and forget it wonders that let you stroll away, live your life, and still sit down to a meal that feels like a warm hug you gave yourself. Nourishing, uncomplicated, secure, and deeply gratifying. This is the cuisine that allows you to dine with dignity without collapsing from exhaustion. So, dust off that countertop hero, settle into your favorite chair, and let's transform dinner time from a chore back into a comfort. First up, sunlit chicken with earthy root vegetables, a heritage dish redesigned for one. This plate delivers a level of ease that feels almost illegal given how luxurious the final result tastes. Do you recall that nostalgic aroma of a slow-simmered weekend meal, the scent that wrapped around you like a heavy blanket before the table was even set? You are about to bottle that exact feeling without sacrificing half your day to earn the privilege of smelling it. I gravitate toward bone-in thighs here because the dark meat possesses a laid-back personality. It remains juicy and forgiving even if your timing drifts by half an hour. Thighs don't nag you for attention. They patiently mind their own business while you focus on yours. Place them directly into the ceramic basin without a searing step, without a pre-cooking ceremony, just pure simplicity. Scatter chunks of carrots, cubed sweet potatoes, and perhaps a parsnip if your spirit craves a minor thrill that impresses no outside critics. Root vegetables were practically designed for this method because they crave long, slow transformation, absorbing savory notes while maintaining structural dignity rather than dissolving into a sad paste. Right here is where the dish silently champions the solo diner. It achieves nutritional harmony without obsessive planning. You receive satiating protein that stabilizes your appetite, fibrous carbs that treat your glucose levels gently, and a natural caramelized sweetness from the potatoes that curbs the post-dinner cookie hunt. A modest pour of olive oil, a scattering of dried thyme, and a splash of low-sodium bone broth conclude the effort. No aggressive spices, no greasy residue, just a clean, honest flavor that doesn't land in your gut like a concrete block. Program the machine to low for roughly 6 to 7 hours and completely disengage your mind from the process. Nap in your recliner, lose track of the weekday, or indulge in a deep chapter of a novel. Upon your return, the meat fractures at the mere suggestion of a fork, looking almost proud of its transformation. And if you consume that first savory bite leaning against the kitchen counter directly from the vessel, you have officially mastered the art of thriving. Since this meal offers a savory, softly herbal profile, it pairs magically with accompaniments that bring either crisp brightness or pillowy softness. A thick slab of crusty sourdough is a flawless partner, just enough structure to mop up the shimmering golden liquid pooling at the bottom. If your palate wishes for greenery, a simple handful of tender lettuce splashed with olive oil and lemon keeps the entire experience airy and light. On evenings when the act of vigorous chewing feels like a burden, consider silky steamed haricot verts. They are pliant, recognizable, and completely undemanding. And honestly, the dish often needs no accessory at all. Nestle it in a deep bowl, appreciate the solitude, and declare the kitchen closed. The hidden magic lives in the aftermath. This dinner resurrects perfectly the next day. The molecular marriage that happens overnight deepens the savor, meaning your subsequent noon meal may outshine the original. Because every component ends up supple and tender, it respects sensitive teeth and achy joints, requiring no aggressive mastication. It is sustenance that understands your physical needs without a word. Moving on to a lavender-kissed oatmeal breakfast infusion. Let's shift focus to the dawn. Specifically, that sacred hour that shouldn't demand cognitive sharpness before caffeine enters your bloodstream. If mornings hit you like a foggy headwind, this porridge is the overnight gift from past you to future you. You assemble the ingredients during the evening wind down, seal the lid, and drift off to sleep knowing you've already outsmarted tomorrow's fatigue. Steel-cut oats are the non-negotiable foundation here. They slowly evolve into a creamy, al dente texture without morphing into wallpaper paste, and they temper blood sugar responses far better than their instant counterparts. Pour in your preferred milk, dairy or nut-based, a whisper of ground cinnamon, and then, and this choice is pivotal, an almost invisible pinch of culinary lavender buds, not enough to evoke memories of hand lotion, merely sufficient to murmur a subtle floral piece into the pot. The public often associates lavender with relaxation playlists or novelty candles, but within a culinary context, it translates as a tender, botanical vanilla. A quiet kind of wizardry occurs during the 8-hour low setting cycle. When morning breaks, merely lifting the glass lid releases a scent profile that psychologically transports you to a tranquil countryside inn, even if you slept in a cramped apartment. The cereal is dense, steamy, and awaiting your arrival without demanding a single stir. Does it get any better than never scrubbing a scorched saucepan because you got distracted sorting through yesterday's correspondence? This style of breakfast serves especially well if your digestive system has developed finicky tendencies over the decades. It blankets the stomach, processes gently, and releases energy in a steady drip rather than a chaotic spike. Top it with sliced ripe banana, a scattering of toasted pecans, or a lazy spiral of raw honey if your sweet tooth needs a natural fix. Here lies the understated joy. The morning rush evaporates. You pause. You consume something that radiates warmth. You inhale deeply. For a brief window, the chaotic world outside your door makes absolutely zero demands. Third in our lineup, supple turkey meatballs drifting in garden-fresh sauce. This dish possesses an almost sneaky emotional depth. You initiate the recipe because the steps are laughably simple. You keep returning because halfway through savoring it, a profound sense of security washes over you. Ground turkey often gets maligned for its tendency to turn into dry, flavorless pebbles, and frankly, it has often earned that criticism. But that disaster only strikes when people treat this lean poultry like fatty beef. Turkey requires tenderness and a bit of moisture insurance. Mix the meat with a single whipped egg, a dusting of dried oregano, and the absolute game-changing cheat code, a small mound of finely shredded zucchini. Your taste buds won't register the presence of the vegetable, yet it silently ensures the spheres stay moist and tender even after hours submerged in hot liquid. It acts as a tiny, invisible insurance adjuster for your palate. There is zero stress regarding perfectly uniform spheres, by the way. This isn't a televised culinary competition. Nestle them directly into a rustic, basil-heavy pomodoro sauce that celebrates garlic while keeping sweetness dependent on the tomatoes, not hidden sugar. The red sauce shoulders the heavy lifting. Over a patient 4 to 5 hour low simmer, the meatballs drink in the tangy richness while remaining dangerously soft. By the time steam billows from the lifted lid, they hold themselves together just tenuously enough to be perfect. The gift of this meal for the solitary gourmand is its adaptive nature. Twirl it with spaghetti if you desire carb comfort, or layer it over spiralized zucchini, fluffy rice, or simply hoist it spoon first from a deep bowl. The remnants often outperform the original as the mingling proteins and acids achieve a state of pure harmony overnight. It also strikes that rare nostalgic chord without anchoring you to the couch in a digestive coma. You achieve the retro Italian-American satisfaction, yet you maintain enough buoyancy to actually clean the kitchen afterward. And if you audibly compliment yourself while eating, relax. It's a natural human response to good cooking. Next, spiced apple and pear medley, the wholesome dessert that refuses to apologize. Now we visit the realm of the after-dinner sweet that doesn't trigger regret. This fruit compote consistently startles skeptics because it smells like a Parisian patisserie, comforts like a cheat meal, yet somehow categorizes itself as a net positive for your body. Imagine being able to say that about candy. Sliced apples and pears carry a vibrant natural fructose load that concentrates during a slow, gentle heat application. Roughly chop them, There is absolutely no necessity to remove the fibrous skin unless the texture bothers you, and toss the chunks into the pot with a heavy dusting of cinnamon, freshly grated nutmeg, and perhaps a single star anise if the mood for adventure strikes. Introduce a splash of unfiltered apple cider, barely enough moisture to prevent sticking, and seal the deal. 3 to 4 hours on the low setting transforms the fruit into a silky, spoonable consistency that retains a slight bite, preserving the memory of its original form. The seasoning deepens during the cook, pumping a fragrance through the vents that signals something glorious is actively happening. What elevates this compote above a standard recipe is its chameleon-like versatility. Spoon it onto Greek yogurt while the sun rises. Scoop it directly from a jar as a midday bridge snack, or crown it with a dollop of creme fraiche when the evening movie starts. Because you bypassed refined white sugar, the experience avoids the jittery rush and the consequent guilt spiral. It also treats a fragile digestive tract with kindness, a fact that deserves more open acknowledgement. Heated fruit softens its cellulose structure, softening the burden on the stomach and jaw, extending gentleness on days when raw salad feels like eating barbed wire. Let's face the truth. Possessing a ready-to-eat, virtuous, sweet treat in cold storage prevents the desperate cupboard raid that ends with half a sleeve of stale cookies you didn't actually want. This compote feels purposeful, proof that you possess the foresight to nurture your own well-being without a theatrical production. 5. Radiant carrot and ginger velvet bisque. Soothing sweetness in a bowl. This soup feels emotionally different the second the aroma escapes the seal. It doesn't just smell edible, it smells joyful, luminous, as if warmth is radiating specifically for you, despite a gloomy forecast or a weary mood. Carrots hold a core identity of sweetness, and long exposure to low heat intensifies that nature rather than opposing it. Couple that with freshly grated ginger root, and the profile pivots to something that awakens dormant senses without introducing any spicy aggression. It's a diffused, creeping coziness that travels down your limbs, coaxing your shoulders away from your earlobes. You simply load the basin without ceremony. Chunks of carrot, quality vegetable stock, the ginger, perhaps a halved shallot. Allow the heat to do its work for 6 slow hours, or until the orange root yields fully to a spoon's gentle pressure. That texture signals you've neared the finish line. Then arrives the transformative act of the immersion blender. The mixture whirls into a completely uniform, liquid silk finish. There are no surprise lumps, zero need for mastication, merely a smooth glide of savory bliss. A splash of full-fat coconut milk introduced at the end creates a velvety luxury that never feels overly dense on the stomach. A microplane of bright orange zest across the surface elevates the entire architecture, creating a bistro-quality finish that required zero culinary skill on your part. This is a spectacular choice for the afternoons when your appetite seems hesitant, your gut lining feels sensitive, or you simply require something that offers a frictionless dining experience. It's digestively gentle, kind to brittle dentition, and deceptively satiating for a liquid. On an emotional level, this bisque functions as a quiet act of self-preservation, lacking any pretentious wellness branding. When you cradle that warm curvature of the bowl, the background static of the day recedes into silence for a handful of minutes. No clatter, no exodus of energy, just pure golden stillness. Furthermore, the mixture freezes into perfectly portioned ice blocks of salvation, ensuring a variant of future you will honor past you's foresight down the line. 6th, the effortless shepherd's pie reimagined. This variant exists specifically for those 24-hour cycles when the spirit craves nostalgic density, but the body has officially declined to participate in the labor force. A conventional meat and potato pie demands a frustrating ballet of separate pans, boiling water, and structured layering. This remix glances at those requirements and politely declines the invitation, while still delivering that same grounding, meaty fulfillment. Introduce lean ground beef or turkey directly into the ceramic pot raw, bypassing the stovetop entirely. I am aware this causes purists to gasp audibly, but let them clutch their pearls. The slow, indirect heat handles the protein safely, especially if you crumble the meat finely with a rigid spatula before walking away. Toss in a blizzard of frozen peas and corn straight from the freezer. No thawing, no dicing, zero accompanying remorse. The frozen orbs defrost gracefully, maintaining their structural integrity and their vibrant color, which injects a visual liveliness into the brown landscape. A squeeze of concentrated tomato paste, a cup of stock, and simple aromatics act as the unifier. This isn't a high-stakes spice contest. It's simply a quiet Tuesday dinner. The base bubbles away for about 6 hours, developing a depth that falsely implies you meticulously nursed a saucepan all afternoon. You didn't, and that secret remains between you and the appliance. Now, the truly clever shortcut is the topping. Rather than boiling and mashing raw potatoes in a separate pot, you utilize leftover or store-bought chilled mashed sweet potatoes. Roughly 60 minutes prior to service, you gently spread the cold mash right over the meat layer. Swoops, peaks, and uneven valleys are highly encouraged. As the final hour ticks, the mash warms through, sponging up the savory steam while forming that iconic duo-layer experience without the oven's involvement. A spoon plunged into the pot returns with a cascade of soft, savory filling and a sweet, creamy cap. You won't need a steak knife for this. A big spoon is the correct cutlery. It's the sort of specific meal that makes the walls of a silent house feel less empty, grounding you on the sofa with quiet, steady fulfillment. Dense without being leaden, nostalgic without being fussy, and forgiving if the mealtime schedule slips. And you will absolutely retreat to the counter for a second portion. That's just sound reasoning at work. 7. Gingery turmeric chicken, restorative, mobility comfort in a vessel. This is the infusion you prepare when your physical joints decide they want to narrate the day's weather report audibly. We all know those specific mornings where the knees warn you of a staircase's existence, and the rotator cuff grumbles at the reach for a coffee mug. The process initiates with bone in dark chicken placed into the bath because the bone mass matters exponentially. As the mixture simmers low and unhurried, the connective tissue gently melts into a gelatinous richness. You don't witness it, you simply reap the benefits. Then we introduce the functional headliners, fresh turmeric root and ginger. The ginger provides a radiating, diffused warmth like a heating pad rather than a sharp bite. The turmeric stains the broth a vivid amber while delivering grounding, slightly musky earthiness. Suspended together, these aromatics make the entire home smell like a therapeutic spa treatment. Toss in smashed garlic cloves, thick carrot medallions, and perhaps florets of cauliflower. The pot simmers gently for roughly 7 hours, mellowing the sharp edges and unifying the ingredients. And honestly, on days when even waiting for a slow cooker feels like a marathon, I've curated a few short 15 to 30-minute soup backups. The details are tucked into the pinned comment section for those moments when you need sustenance rapidly. Once finished, the fowl surrenders its bones with zero resistance, so you can shred it using a lazy fork. The broth is deeply savory but never greasy, and each spoonful genuinely feels like an internal service repair. It manages to soothe without being a flavorless hospital tray and retains integrity despite multiple reheats over the coming week. If you find yourself thinking it bridges the gap between therapy and taste, you've hit the exact target I was aiming for. 8 Fiesta black bean and quinoa jumble a vibrant protein powerhouse. Now we pivot to something with a decidedly peppier attitude because nutritious cuisine does not always need to whisper somberly. This plate is vivid, effervescent, and shockingly satiating, making your posture straighten upon eye contact alone. The black legumes deliver a meaty, dense toothsomeness, while the quinoa contributes a fluffy, nutty background note. The assembly method is a pure dump and go operation rinsed beans. Raw quinoa, a rainbow of diced bell peppers, vegetable stock, and toasty warm spices like cumin and mild chili. There is no tricky timing sequence, no sautéing prelude, just a leap of faith into a 4 to 5 hour low setting. During that window of inattention, a tiny miracle unfolds. The quinoa absorbs the spicy liquid while remaining distinct and airy. The beans mellow and bleed their richness into the matrix, connecting all the disparate particles. Upon completion, the mixture is robust enough to stand as a main course, but airy enough that it does not plant you flat on the floorboards. A final squeeze of lime slices through the density, waking up the palate. A heavy scattering of fresh cilantro makes the bowl feel professionally finished. It masquerades as having a far longer ingredient list than it does. This medley shines when you want heft without animal protein. It provides a flat, stable energy plateau without a crash. Eating a bowl that reflects the color spectrum feels deeply satisfying. It looks intentionally optimistic, like you are acing life without grinding for it. This is the pot I suggest when someone confesses they do not identify as a cook. I smile because this preparation does not care about your resume and will turn out magnificently. Lentils remain the ultimate low-maintenance legume, requiring no pre-soak or hand-holding. They rinse, go into the liquid, and immediately start thickening the broth with natural creamy starch. This eliminates the need for flour, heavy cream, or weird thickeners. What captivates me is the stew's vast capacity for imperfection. Dice your mirepoix into flawless cubes if chopping is therapeutic, or hack them into jagged, uneven chunks if you do not find chopping relaxing. The pot never passes judgment, and the finished result still tastes like you labored over a hot flame. A 6 to 8 hour low slumber allows the legumes to collapse softly into a creamy suspension. It is substantial without sitting in the stomach like a boulder. You desire fullness, not exhaustion. Spinach is introduced in the final act to prevent it from fading into a dismal khaki color. A massive handful wilts down into nothing visually while your microbiome acknowledges the sacrifice. This meal leaves you feeling upright, mobile, and steady. A tiny whisper of acidity, like a dash of apple cider vinegar, lifts the entire flavor spectrum. It makes the notes pop brighter as though you added a premium mystery component. If chewing feels like a burden, this is the safety net that stores, freezes, and reheats beautifully. It is the culinary equivalent of a worn cashmere cardigan you consistently reach for. The calypso beans and simmered greens possess an actual personality. If lentil stew is a quiet monk, the calypso bean pot is a street musician playing a sunny melody. A prolonged, gentle immersion with sufficient liquid and digestive-friendly herbs creates a creamy, non-volatile result. Chickpeas keep their spherical shape, yet yield a buttery interior. Tangy crushed tomatoes cut the richness, and smoked paprika adds a deep back of the throat warmth. Hardy greens like collards or Tuscan kale slink into the hot tub to collapse over many hours. Once given time, the greens pay you back with a mineral-rich pot liquor flavor. It does not taste like penance food, but like a dish you would eat with the window cracked open. The second act is often better than the first as chickpeas drink in the spices while the dish cools. Day 2 is bolder and more integrated, as if the ingredients agreed on a collective identity. Nutritionally, this dish is quietly carrying heavyweight, metabolic fiber, plant-driven iron, anti-inflammatory benefits, but those are secondary rewards. You eat it because it feels alive and comforting in equal measure, the kind of meal that reminds your shoulders to drop. And if you scoop it over a bed of couscous or eat it straight from the container while leaning against the fridge shelf, that's acceptable. This isn't a white tablecloth entree. It exists to lighten the load, not complexify it. And there you have it. These dishes prove beyond doubt that cooking for yourself doesn't have to be boring or exhausting. If a single concept sparked a thought of, I can actually pull that off, then this was worthwhile. Remember, cooking at this phase of life isn't about staging a performance for others. It's about tending to your own well-being in a way that feels gentle, accessible, and genuinely pleasurable. If this added a little flavor to your day, hit the like button, pass it along to a friend who lives solo, and subscribe to my channel for more effortless, honest meals that don't demand a standing ovation. Drop a comment telling me which recipe you'll attempt first, and if your slow cooker is already humming on the counter, you're ahead of the curve. Keep cooking kindly.